So a very big welcome to Motion 72, supporting our branches. The Branch Resources Review briefing session focusing on branch support and organising fund. As I hope you've already picked up, the session is very much targeted at those of you who would like to know more about organising and the fund, and we hope by the end of the 90 minutes you'll feel much better informed. Everything you hear today can be found in the report and on Motion 72, the links for which you've already received by email. Before we begin, we'll be running two polls today, one now and one at the end of the session. And please could you submit your responses when prompted. We've already had one question submitted on this, so hopefully that's already answered that. And now I'm going to move to some housekeeping. Can I remind the audience of the importance of treating each other with dignity and respect at all times, and that I'm expecting that standard to be met during this event. The chat function has been disabled, so please email the facilitators in your registration email if you've got anything that you want to put down. We do encourage lots of contributions. We want to hear from all of you, so we ask that you limit questions to one in each section, and your contribution should be no longer than 2 minutes. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. To do this, go to the participants area and you'll find the facility in there. As you can see, we've been joined by actually 2 BSL interpreters. They are Karen Green and Susan Booth. And if you'd like to use their services, please look for them in the participants list and pin them onto your screen. You can do this in the participants list as well. We also have a captioning facility in Zoom. Julie Whitaker, CJ Captioning, will be doing this. If you have a look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a box that says live transcript. If you go into there, that'll give you the option of initiating the captions. If you're using a separate screen, use the link sent in the registration email. And if you haven't got it, no problem. We'll send you the dedicated link now. Just raise your hand. We'd like to keep everyone on mute for the majority of time that the presentation's being made, and we'll unmute you should you wish to ask a question. Please raise your hand. And please can I ask that you keep your cameras off. This presentation is expected to last 45 minutes and there'll be time for further questions at the end. We do have some questions that have already been sent and we'll be asking those at the end of the session, and I'll be asking the people that sent those questions to present those then. So please get yourself prepared for that. We have got IT support at the meeting. Anyone with issues with their IT, please email the contact details in your joining instructions. And a reminder again, this session is being recorded. So I hope you're all sitting comfortably, and if so, we'll begin. So the purpose of the presentation is to present to you the Branch Support and Organising Fund. So I'm Chris Tansley, and we're talking about the panel today. I'm Chris Tansley, NEC member, also a regional joint convener for the East Midlands. I'm joined by Josie Bird, chair of the Branch Resources Review, also an NEC member. Nikki Ramanandi, regional convener from the Northern region, and Lillian Mesa, vice chair of the BRR, and Lillian's the convener for Scotland. We hold formal positions in the union, but ultimately we're all activists like yourself. So back in 2019, Motion 126 called for a comprehensive review of branch resources with a requirement to report back to conference in 2021. We've done the review period, that's now come to an end, and we've got a package of proposals to put the union on a firm footing to face the future put together a set of proposals that are fair, sustainable and affordable. We've met 12 times during the review period as a group and over 75 times as individual work streams. We've looked at all different areas of the review, and the Branch Resources Review Group have endorsed the package that's in front of you. The Finance and Resource Management Committee have also endorsed the package, and the NEC endorsed the package themselves on the 26th of February 2021. So I'm now going to hand you over to Josie. So
thanks, Chris. Before I go any further, can you hear me, Chris? Because I've unmuted myself, but I'd just like to double check.
Yes, I can, Josie.
Perfect. Okie cokes. In that case, I shall make a start. So this slide that everyone can see in front of them is the proposed new funding scheme to branches. And just really briefly to run you through this, what we've agreed, the Branch Resources Review, is an overall increase in the allocation of the union's annual income from 23.5%, which is what currently goes to branches, to 25.5%. So that's an increase of 2% for branches. That will be worth approximately £3.3 million in additional funding to branches. And we've based that figure on our 2019 outturn, obviously because it's a percentage of the union's annual income. If the union's income goes up, so will that percentage figure. If the union's income goes down, that percentage figure would also go down. So it can fluctuate, but £3.3 million is a pretty accurate assessment of where we think that figure will be as a starting point should this pass in 2022. It may be that you've got some questions specifically about the branch funding formula today. We are running a dedicated session on the branch funding formula in June. And so if you have questions about that, I'd most definitely encourage you to attend that session. Today, what we're going to be focusing on is the new Branch Support and Organising Fund. For information, what I would say is you can see at the bottom the way the current branch funding, the current branch funding scheme is allocated across the branch funding formula and the regional pool, and you can see what we're proposing it look like in the future. The new Branch Support and Organising Fund would replace the regional pool. As you could see on the other slide, it's 4 times larger, and therefore it'll be able to deliver more. Because we're now going to move into the detail of the Branch Support and Organising Fund, I'm going to hand over to Nikki, but I think it's fair to say we think this new fund has got the potential to be really transformational in how we organise and what we're able to achieve. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Josie. So if we could just go on, thank you very much. We do know that some people have said that there's some black marks across the top of the screen. Unfortunately, we just can't get rid of them, so please just bear with us. So in terms of the Branch Support and Organising Fund, back in February 2020, all branches were surveyed and 357 responded, which was really good, and they told us what they needed. They needed more time, they needed more support, and they needed more money, and it was in that order. The Branch Support and Organising Fund is just one part of the package of proposals designed to address this. The fund, as Josie's already said, will replace the regional pool and the fighting fund, and based on the 2019 figures, as Josie's already indicated, that would be an additional 3.3 million funding available to branches per year, and it's likely that that would increase over time. The fund will be held at a regional lay level for flexible deployment in and across branches. In terms of the concept of a regional organising fund, I think it meets all the financial formula decision-making principles which underpin the review, in particular the requirement for branch funding formula to be flexible enough to accommodate the diversity of circumstances that we know our branches face. In the context of the current review, a proposal to increase the financial allocation to a regional organising fund is predicated on a commensurate reduction in spending in other parts of the union. And I think that's really important that, we recognise that there will have to be a shift in resources to be able to fund this fund. Over time, it will be possible for this fund to be increased, and that can either be through the NEC or through National Delegate Conference. Thank you. If we could just move on to the next slide. So I'm not going to read through these, but you can see in terms of what the regional pool and fighting fund did, and then what a branch support and organising fund could do. When we met as a work stream, one of the things that we talked about was, what do branches really need? What do they need help with to achieve the union's objectives? Now, I personally think, you know, the regional pool and the fighting fund were really good, are really good, but they just didn't address the needs we know that we've got. So we felt that we would need to create a new fund that could help us organise to scale. And, you know, I think it would give us more time, more regional support and more funding. And I think that will give us the opportunity to organise to the scale of the challenge that we face in 2021 and beyond. And I think it'll also enable branches to tackle the casework challenges that I know that you do face. Josie's already said it, and it's on the screen. This fund is 4 times the size of the regional pool, so it is transformational, and what's more, it can be bespoke to the needs of the individual branches, which again is really important in terms of addressing those individual needs of branches. Next slide. So in terms of governance, and there has been, you know, quite a lot of discussion within the branch resources group about what governance should feel like. One of the things we wanted to make really clear was it would be a regional lay decision-making body that would agree those bids, and it will not be an onerous task that people will have to fill in. You know, there will be an application form, and it'll be a consistent form right across all of the regions, which again, we thought was really important. But that work hasn't started. If this motion is passed, that work will be undertaken by an implementation group, which will be, you know, lay-led, which again is really important. And just like now, the allocation and management of the regional pool is decided regionally. This will be exactly the same for this fund. So in terms of what the fund could do, we've got a couple of examples for you. So if we could just move on to the next slide. So in terms of some of the changes to the formula, in the new proposed funding formula, the multi-employer factor will be raised by 5.5%, and the number of members will be lowered to 3 members, which we think is really supportive in terms of supporting branches. So this factor will provide extra money. So one of the things that you could consider as a branch is to trial a caseworker, you know, to really put some dedicated organising into a particular area that you feel that you could grow our union and get more members. And again, one of the things we do know is that employers have changed, so they cross branches, they cross regions, in fact. So this could be an area where we might have pooled bids from branches or pooled bids across regions. Next slide. So one of the examples we thought would be really good, you know, we get a lot of feedback in terms of early years education. It's spread across quite a large area. So imagine an early years provider with thousands of employees and hundreds of workplaces. They exist, we know that they do. Our current membership is currently low, there's low density, and participation from those members we have is actually quite low. We don't currently have a recognition agreement in that workplace, and we know that some of the employers are hostile. And we know that where there is that hostility, it's often more difficult to get people into trade union membership. That can be the same in terms of precarious employment. So what we'll do is we'd really organise within this area to meet the challenges that we know that we would face. A regional organising fund would ensure sufficient resources would be available. And again, I think that's really important. The feedback that we got was people want to organise in areas of low density, but actually we just haven't got the time and we haven't got the resource. A fund like this could really help us do that. If you could just go on to the next slide, please. Another area we get a lot of feedback, you know, particularly in the region that I'm in the northern region, we know that schools is, you know, a big challenge. How schools are beginning to operate, what they're looking like is different right across the different regions. But actually what we do know is that there is huge potential in schools for us to become organised. And this is a bit of like a real life example. So you could have an LO who would look at our density across the piece. They would map those schools, they would produce local organising materials bespoke to schools, which again is really important. they could set up a school forum. And one of the things we do know over the last, 14 months is there's so many different ways that people can meet. There's so many different platforms. So the idea of finishing school at 4:30 and then getting to a school forum potentially at a regional office or in a branch, we could do that remotely. And again, we've got feedback from branches who have set up school forums in this way, which have really started to work. And of course, like any campaign, you could identify an issue. So one of those issues could be that the council weren't paying the term time only in the right way in terms of leave. And again, would have an issue to organise and campaign about in terms of growing our density, should you have a model around schools. Thank you. Next slide. And I hope you can see that we've picked some what we think are really live examples of where we get feedback of where it's been difficult to organise. So one of the biggest ones is clearly social care, in that they can be large and they can be hostile in terms of an employer. So what we could have is you could have a branch organiser that was funded either solely by the fund or jointly with the fund and the branch. That isn't a prerequisite of applying for the fund, but that is something that you might want to consider. They would work with their RO and LO, and then what they would look to do is to improve those terms and conditions for our social care members. And then, clearly we would start to interact with the employer in this area as well. And I personally think in terms of social care, this is where we would get cross-branch bids together. So you could have, health branches and local government branches putting bids in together to organise, across social care, which I think is something that's really, really quite exciting. Thank you. So what I'll do now is I'll just hand back to Chris.
Thanks for that, Nikki. Okay, so your ideas, by the way, this is not the end of the presentation. There's going to be a few more slides yet, and the opportunity for questions, as I said at the beginning, will be there at the end of the session. So we've shown you what could be done with the fund, and I just wonder if I could ask you what you think you would like to do with the fund when it comes into your area. So I'm asking for a bit of participation. Is there anything that people have ideas about that they'd like to use the fund for?
I'm not sure we know where the raised hand function is. It's certainly not in my chat.
Okay, can anybody help here?
Not in chat and participants. I can only unmute myself.
It's in the reactions. Yeah, the reactions at the bottom of the screen. There's an emoji face.
Yes, found it there.
Okay, so I've got John Hughes. John?
Yes, thanks, Chris. By way of starting the conversation, can I just say John Hughes, Regent Branch, Branch Secretary, but also Regional Treasurer for Cymru Wales. As I say, by way of starting the conversation off, I really welcome the way that there's going to be the ability to do cross-region, cross-branch bids with regards to this. There's something that I've been talking about for about 2 years. So I think when Nikki said it's really exciting, I totally agree. And this is something that would really support our social care programme that is currently being proposed in Cymru Wales. And also, I totally support the example that was mentioned for schools. It will bring, enliven the region, I think, and it'll be able to, as I say, cross-fertilisation of branches and sectors speaking to one another, which historically money hasn't been able to be used because it's been, the money hasn't been in silos, but the individual branches and sectors, I think, have been operated in silos. But I'm sure Cymru Wales officers will say that that's not entirely true, but we've been trying to do our best as well. But I welcome that element. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I've got Linda Deliu.
Hi there. Yeah, I just echo what the previous speaker said about cross-branch bids and working together with local branches. But I'm from Greenwich Unison, by the way. Oh, sorry, I got a message there now. Yeah, I'm from Greenwich Unison, and what I think this fund will allow us to do is to be proactive in social care rather than just reactive. So we're really busy with all of our social care organisations in Greenwich Borough, but a lot of it is just reactive because some of them are really poor employers. So yeah, the chance to be proactive and really be able to support people to become reps and stewards and things, because I think it's more difficult for people in low paid jobs who are really busy, maybe you've got other responsibilities or maybe another job. It's much more difficult for them to be able to come on board as a rep and commit themselves to training and all the other things that go with being a Unison rep. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Pat Jones.
Hi, Chris. Just to say, I think I echo what the other two speakers have just said. I mean, my branch is Umline, which is the community branch in Wales. So the issues that some of the local government and health branches are finding with outsourced employers are what we deal with every single day, because we have 500 employers in our branch. Cross-working across branches for us would be extremely complex because we're an all Wales branch. So we basically would have to work with every other branch in Wales, and I'm not quite sure how that would work out because we have members everywhere. From a practical viewpoint, because we do tend to be quite practical in our branch, we have to be. This funding, what we would be looking for is caseworkers initially, for North and South Wales. The travelling we do is ridiculous. You know, sorry, I'll just start my video. Hiding because my hair looks a bit weird today. There we go, guys. Hello. Yeah, I mean, the travelling for us, 5-hour travel to do a disciplinary is quite normal. That's not unusual for us. If we had a caseworker who covered North Wales and one who covered South Wales, that would certainly cut down on that and would cut down on the time wasted. You know, 10 hours of travelling to do 1 hour's disciplinary, that's 10 hours I could have used to benefit the other members in the branch. Certainly also with recruitment, we don't have a main office. Our members are mainly social care, though we do cover housing associations as well. A lot of our members never go near their head offices unless they're in trouble. So that's not somewhere they're really going to be encouraged to come. So we would be looking to use this fund for the hiring of premises in areas. You know, if I went up to North Wales, I could get members and potential members from say 40 different employers to come to one place, one central place to meet up, to have recruitment, to be able to develop further our rep forums. Again, we've got the same thing. You know, you've got, our reps are extremely isolated. You'll have one rep and an employer. So group meetings like that would be invaluable. We do use online. We've always used online because of the nature of our branch, and that's something we're going to continue. But those face-to-face meetings, especially when you've got new reps, I think are invaluable. So that's something we want to develop. And also equipment. A thing I always bang on about, Josie will be sick of me saying this, because it's all about CaseWeb, which I don't think we should have to pay for at all if we have to use it. But it's the added cost of CaseWeb. You know, it's not just about using the system, which I think would be brilliant. It would make my life as a branch secretary much, much easier, rather than chasing people to email me documents all the time, which I waste a lot of time doing. But we would have to provide IT equipment for each one of our reps because they don't sit in offices. Most of them are support workers. Most of them are supporting adults with learning disabilities and such like within their own homes. So there's not always IT equipment there. So it's not just the monthly cost of CaseWeb, which I could argue with the branch and we could manage that, you know, with the 50% that's being discussed. But then it's 12 brand new laptops plus the training for all those reps to be able to use that. So I would welcome the ease of access to this fund. I find regional pool and the fighting fund virtually impossible to access, so we don't tend to bother. Whereas this, I would very much be banging on the door saying, hello, we're here, we're back. Can we please have some funding for this? So from a practical viewpoint, I've got a shopping list, guys.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you very much, Pat. I've got Nick Keynes.
Sorry, I can't.
You're on
there. There we go. I'm here. I'm coming out. I work in the private sector. I've been a rep for coming on for 22 years in the private sector. My concern or issue is that there's a nationwide lack of regional support for people in the private sector. I know within my region, one of the organisers that's tasked with organising in the private sector gets 1 day a month, which just is insufficient to do any sort of organising across the private sector, across the whole region. So with this funding, are we able to get regions to bid for funding to pay for area organisers within the private sector? Or would it have to be a group of branches getting together and then the branches would become effectively the employer of that person?
Thank you, Nick. I'm not taking questions at this point. I say questions will come at the end, I think, really. It's just to get some idea about how you would use this part of the package, I think, really. So, Christina?
Mia, let me come. Oh, because they all stopped the video. So no video. Oh, start my video. Hi. One of the ideas, I've already done it before, because with the NHS, we had lots of privatization. It happened to me in the past as well. And when it happens in one of these places that have been privatized, it's been stupid, our members, myself, you know, we are not allowed by the NHS the facility time. So I remember then when it happened in not long ago, it was 2019, and I couldn't get anyone from a branch, no, because there's no facility time. I paid people the amount of the hourly rate, you know, like please ask for annual leave, time off, whatever, and I will pay you for the time that you come here to spend to attend the meetings. So there's nothing in breach with the with our regulations, and I will pay you exactly. And somebody, how much are they paying? I'm paying exactly what they will be paid with the job. So in a different way, but that was what people have said. And then I was very lucky because anyway it was my sabbatical year and I could attend. And so that would really help, because there's been discussions, you know, why are you wasting the money of I'm not wasting the money of the branch, you know, that I want to assist the members who are paid. You know, if you pay and you are a Unison member, you have the right of being assisted, you know, and they say, oh, it should be the region. The region is not always available. They can come for the most important meetings, you know, they are overloaded with things to do. And the other thing is, it's been the story of the helping people working from home with equipment, because I got sort of trouble this year because one of our members, certain ages, 70 years old, working 3 days, you know, for Unison. So I got some equipment and the armchair, and I was not allowed in the discussion to get the same armchair for a person who was working for Unison for us, and not the same amount of time, slightly younger, but still with back problems. And I was told, oh, is the employer can pay for that, but the employer is not paying. And I know what I've been told. Sorry, I know that the question will come at the very end. All this equipment belongs to Unison, is asset to Unison. We have been instructed for that. So it's been something I really, and I don't know if this is a question, maybe at the time, you know, when it comes to social care, how to help people in trouble in these difficult times. But thank you. This is my idea. Especially, I know that is a big issue to pay those who have to attend meetings for the places that have been privatized, because there's no facility times, and we don't know and I know that he raises a question, you know, because we all are volunteers, but a volunteer is working, is doing volunteer job during their facility times. If I need to ask somebody to take their annual leave to attend a meeting, of course I have to pay them. Just this. Thank you
very much, Christina. Thank you. And the last one I've got is Moira Owen.
Hello, everybody.
Hiya.
Thank you, Chris. I'm also from Cymru Wales region, and I got an idea actually about retired members. I mean, I used to be funded as a fighting fund organiser myself with Unison when we had the pensions dispute. So I'm finding this very interesting. But I also worked in the branch, so I know from my own branch how it's becoming increasingly difficult to organise members. They're going out to sort of arm's length organisations, and although we don't have academy schools and things like that in Wales, I used to be lead on schools, so I know how that can be difficult. It's really interesting in seeing these great ideas coming forward. I know some of this money will be used for recruitment and retention, but the idea I would have is to extend that to make sure people know it's about retention when people retire. I think that the point I'd like to make is it is very difficult for my branch sometimes to find out why people have left, whether they've retired. We don't seem to be getting many new retired members through from private organisations, which is within the branch. I hear people saying that they stopped paying their subs just a few years before they retired because they didn't think it was worth it anymore. That is a real shame, and it's too late for them then to become a retired member. We are an untapped resource. I'm the branch group secretary, and in fact I just got a place on the regional retired members committee. So my idea is that some of that fund could be sort of extended for trying to keep people in the union and to support the branches wherever we could.
Thank you, Moira. Thank you very much. Okay, can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Can we try and take those boxes off? Yeah, they're coming off. Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, I'll just give you a minute to have a look at that before I carry on. So under the banner of saving time, what you can see there is the package, and you can see the review was itself very wide indeed. Former branch review motions have focused just on money. Some financial motions have passed, but many have not, and this might be because they don't delve enough into the issues that branches face, which isn't just about finance. The review wanted to make a more holistic approach and focus on what branches needed to thrive. And as you saw from the survey results, it was about far more than just money. Although the proposals are shown here under 3 headings, really all of them are designed to save busy activists time. And you'll see that there's some proposals in the package that could be considered business as usual. The reason they're in the package is that the backing of a conference motion will ensure that they become a priority for the union. We've looked at the branch support and organising fund, and Lillian's now going to take you through a few of the package items now. So over to you, Lillian.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, colleagues, for really interesting to hear some of the ideas. And as we go through the presentation, you'll see that we'll capture some of those ideas, and then again, as Chris says, we'll come on to some of the questions. So as colleagues have said early on, this review group, in terms of how we were established, was not solely to look at money and how money was spent, but also to have a bit more detail around what it is that we could do better, how we could advance Unison's priorities. And you'll see from this slide there are a number of points that I just want to draw to your attention to, in particular in relation to the package that makes up motion 72. The National Facility Time Campaign and the Enhanced Bargaining Support Service. So when we had the conversation earlier, Christina raised some of the issues around facility time, and particularly in the private sector, and how the Branch Support and Organising Fund can support that. But over and above that, we are going to do a piece of detailed work around the National Facility Time Campaign, because through our survey and through our questions sent out to the branches, the #1 priority was time. More time to represent members, more time to engage with members, and more time to organise. And part of that is to make sure that that lay structure in the facility time, we have that campaign to support that. And we know that over the last decade of austerity, there has been a tax on public services, and a tax on public servants, and a tax on our members who deliver those services. We know the pressures that people are under in terms of their living standards to try and maintain. And again, as Christina said, we've got within the private sector virtually no facility time for colleagues, and therefore we have to make sure that we include all of Unison in this campaign, not just the directly employed staff, but the whole of our organisation, the whole of our membership, to ensure that we deliver on a facility time campaign and a facility time agreement that gives us the ability to represent our members appropriately. Within the package itself, around the national, the enhanced bargaining support from the regional support, again, we want to make sure that we've got all of the relevant information and that our activists have the time to access all of the services within our current framework. And we want to make sure that our union thinks about this in a collective way and not as individual branches or regions. And I think again, through the conversation, and as has been highlighted by Linda and John, around the cross fertilisation of how we operate within Unison. We cannot and should not be operating in silos. We need to make sure that we have a collective approach to this, and that we ensure that the whole of our union benefits from the fund itself, but overall benefits from the branch resources review and all of the elements within that. Next slide, please, Nikki. So the next slide I want just to talk you through briefly is around the organising school and the regional support. And again, as colleagues have said, the package, the overall package looks like a number of elements within that. And this package includes a real focus on the organising school. And I think this has become more and more relevant as we have gone through over 10 years of austerity and the tax of the Tory government on trade unions and the trade unions' ability to organise. We've, with the removal of the Union Learning Fund, a further attack on our ability to organise our members, but also our activists. And this, the regional organising school, with this focus, we'll be asking our learning and organising service to make sure that we have a wide range of training that all our activists can participate in. And it's also about making sure that our current activists and our future activists get the opportunity for learning and development. And again, certainly on Pat's shopping list, he gave us some food for thought about what was appropriate in relation to making sure that the development of our activists, the training of our activists, and the future proofing of our trade union and our branches, our regions and our national work is maintained. So that the branch support and organising fund, in terms of the branch reviews, has also recommended that there is a real dedicated approach and a focus around the organising school, that there is a commitment to not do this piecemeal, to ensure that there is a process around it, and that regions and the branches are fully engaged in that process. And we need to make sure that whatever comes out of this, in terms of how we take forward the growth within Unison through this pandemic, that we've got the skills and the experience of our reps and branches ready to take on the significant challenges we think will face us following this pandemic. So there is some real positive benefits within the whole package of this review, and we would ask you to absolutely consider how we best take forward that. And I think as well, if we go back to the point that Pat raises around building capacity for new reps and building capacity to organise those stewards forums, this gives us the opportunity and the resources to make sure that we have in place a system that supports everyone. Next slide, please. So let me just finish, colleagues, by highlighting some of the positive benefits of the branch resources review, but moreover of the branch support and organising fund. We would like to see everyone, as many people as we can from this discussion today, participate fully in the question session next, but we want to see you all on the virtual conference, the Special Delegate Conference that takes place in June. We want you to read very carefully the report that's been submitted, and also the motion that we've submitted from the NEC submitted, motion 72, which is supporting our branches. We think this motion absolutely delivers for our branches, delivers for our region, and also delivers for our national union. And it is about that collective approach, that solidarity across the whole union that we think this motion delivers on. So we are encouraging you to participate in the debate, ask any questions that you have now, to absolutely understand what the package is, understand fully how you can and we can take forward a package of measures that we think fair, affordable and sustainable, and that will see us into the future to deliver for our members. So we're asking you to support the motion at the Special Delegate Conference. Chair, can I just thank everyone already for their participation, listening to colleagues in this call, hearing all the different elements where they can use this fund, and certainly for me gives us really good food for thought. Hearing about how we collectively work together, again, fantastic, and happy to take any questions. Chris, thanks very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Lillian, thank you. Okay, we'll move into the questions now. I said at the beginning, we've had some questions submitted to us, and the way I'm going to deal with this is I'll take 2 or 3 of those. I'll ask the people that submitted them to say them again, and then I'll open it up to see whether anybody else has got any supplementary questions on those particular issues. The first one I've got is from Sonia Howard from Kensington and Chelsea branch. Are you there, Sonia? No, I don't think Sonia is. So I'll read it out in the absence of Sonia. Sonia says, hi, how would the details of sharing admin support work with another branch? So I think this is one for Nikki, maybe.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in. Thanks, Chris. So hopefully we've covered this in terms of the presentation, but absolutely in terms of your branch organising framework, if you would identify actually you need some additional admin support, you'd talk to a branch close to you, or even maybe not that close, depending in terms of the geography, and you wanted to put a bid in to support an admin function, then absolutely you can do that. That would not be a problem. And then that would be assessed with the measured criteria. And again, you know, there would be support in terms of filling in that application. I think somebody mentioned about the difficulty of the Fighting Fund and regional pool. You know, in terms of organising stuff, they will be able to support people in terms of filling those applications in. So the short answer, Chris, is yes, you would be able to put a bid in for such a project.
Okay, thank you. The next one's from Jonathan Dunning. I don't think Jonathan's here either. I've had a look on my Find a Participant and I can't find him there. So Jonathan's question was, what's the system for allocating additional funding? Will it be automatic based on meeting the criteria, or is there some sort of form? And I think Lillian was going to come in on that one.
Thanks, Chris. So Jonathan's question probably taken two parts. So the automatic part of that will be branches will be allocated their funds based on the formula, and that's an automatic progression from the fund, the formula to the branch. The other part around what we're discussing today around the branch support and organising fund, there will be a lay committee developed in each of the regions, and the lay committee will then deliberate over the applications that come in. So that will be in the context of the branches organising frameworks in terms of the priorities that they've set in there, but also in relation to the regional priorities. So what we are encouraging as many people as possible to do is be proactive in your regions, be proactive in terms of your priorities for the branch, submit and support your organising frameworks so that the region absolutely knows where your priorities sit and lie. But that, covering that question, Chris, I would say that's in two parts. So hopefully that covers exactly what the question was asking.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Lillian. I'll go into a third question. We've got a question from Steve Adkins. Again, I can't find Steve as being here, but Steve's question was, what funding is available for joint branch projects? Was Nikki going to answer this, I think?
Yeah, I can. So again, I think it's very similar to my answer around, you know, the admin support. So there will be for the funding that we've identified in terms of the additional monies that will be made available if the motion is passed, will be distributed across the regions, and then branches, self-organised groups will be able to bid for a particular pot of money for a particular project. In addition, what it can do is it can employ, you know, local organisers or area organisers, to pick up the point before around private contractors. But again, you know, it will be determined region by region in terms of the use of that money. Branches will also be able to match fund should they so wish, but really what's important is that that will not be a prerequisite to a fund being agreed. And one of the things we talked about at length within the working group that I was part of was all branches are different, all of their funding, all of their finances are different, and how they spend it. So people weren't going to be penalised in terms of not being able to match fund. So yeah, in terms of how that funding will be made available, then hopefully that addresses that question. And again, you know, in terms of joint branch funding, if I take an example from my own region, we've got a multi-academy trust. I know they're not applicable to all regions, but actually it crosses 3 different regions. And we're going through a project at the minute, and that's an ideal example of where an organiser could work, an additional organiser across branches and regions. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Nikki. They're the first 3 questions, and I've already got some hands up. As I said, you can ask supplementaries on those issues. John Hughes first.
Yeah, sorry. Oop. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for allowing me another question. On that particular issue about, it's been brought up a couple of times, isn't it, about through this particular fund, funding regional organisers or area organisers. Just a sort of technical point, I suppose, obviously with regional treasurer hat on, but obviously it does get thrown up at, and discussed as branch secretaries. Obviously, staffing at the moment and the funding of regional organisers, area organisers, obviously comes out of the regional secretary's budget, individual budget, and if there's any requirement for additional staffing, that goes back and forth with the NEC. So how does the two, in effect, how can I put it? How do the two scenarios interact then? Would regional secretaries and monies that would not ordinarily go through that process, are they replaced by this? And in effect, lay activists are putting in bids where we think staffing should be, and it comes through this particular pool. It's just a change of emphasis, really, wouldn't it? As I understand it, what currently happens. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Does anybody want to come back on that?
I'm happy to pick that up if that's helpful,
Okay.
Chris.
Lovely, thank you, Josie.
I'm going to confess, John, you went a little bit patchy in one or two parts, but I think I really caught the gist. Was effectively regions already employ staff, and those staff are given workloads, and a large proportion of that is supporting branches currently. How would this change that dynamic? Well, this fund would be additional, and so the current staff that we currently have in regions would continue with their existing workload. But clearly, where this new fund, if it's agreed, was employing staff, they would work jointly with them as well. So it would be very much collaborative. What we're hoping is that this fund will be able to employ, it's not going to be a massive number of staff, but a couple of members of staff, and they will be deployed on different projects across the region according to what the regional lay group decides of the greatest priorities and which bids get agreed. And so there'll be additional resources to those branches. And as time goes on, those staff we anticipate will remain the same, but the projects they work on will change as new, as one project may expire and another project may come online. But what we want is for the existing staff who obviously have permanent jobs in supporting branches to be able to work in tandem with these new staff so that we can gain the maximum output. But clearly, if a branch has a bid where they've got a caseworker or organiser through the branch support and organising fund, what we don't anticipate is that the region would then say, you no longer need your regional organiser support. This is additional capacity. It's not substitute support that branches would be gaining. If I just very, very briefly as well, it was touched upon in the ideas section, and I think it is a really, really important thing to emphasise as well when we're talking about it, which is these bids, they wouldn't last forever. The timescales are variable. It's not a set 12 months. But what we really hope that we can achieve with these organisers is that capacity building takes place with activists as well, so that when a project does come to its natural end, what the branch isn't in a position is where they've got new members who hopefully have some new activists, but they'll be new and inexperienced, that they kind of don't feel equipped to continue supporting those new members and activists, and then they feel that kind of over the intervening 12 months, some of that good work becomes undone because they haven't been fully integrated with the branch. We want to do capacity building within the activist space so that the good work can continue after projects finish, and any new members and activists that come in as a result of these projects actually feel fully a part of the branch as well. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Thank you, Josie. I've got Christina.
Hi, hold up. Yeah, sorry, I closed myself again. A few questions. Just to link to what you had just said now. What will be the role of this extra support, and how does it come into the equation? For example, if it happens, because it happens sometimes in the past, we had to support some members, and on the particular occasion, one person was on annual leave, the other one was off sick. And is it somebody that we can call for the region on the particular day to go and attend the grievance or the hearing rather than postponing the hearings? This is the first question. Is it somebody we need to make request, or is just somebody that it will be available just in case we need it, and we call the region, because in the past, I have to be sincere, we used to have the regional organizer stepping in. It happened to me. When the branch secretary was away, it was important, for me to be redeployed, and the regional organizer stepped in and was helping. In the last year, we have been told that the regional organizer do not have to step in, and it's better to leave the members without anyone to assist them. It was a bit unpleasant, and really with people feeling suicidal, and is it something to help for this situation? Because I believe the regional organizers are fully booked. They have so much to do. And so to help just in case there is a need, and we are a big branch, but sometimes it happens that the things happen and people are not available, especially when it comes a certain period of the year. And the other thing is for this type of funding, I didn't understand fully how, how we can, branch can apply, in the sense, is there, do we have, apart from the form, if you want to hire a branch organizer, which is all right, what about, for example, if it's not for that, it's for some event or something else, do we have an email or a form? But anyway, the form has to be submitted somewhere, or a link. How are we going to apply for an event? What is the maximum amount that we that people can ask for a particular event, and what are the criteria to be selected? And the third thing is, sorry, lots of questions, but it's very interesting. When do you think this thing is going to become effective, if it is approved? And the last thing is, what about, because we had this situation, if one of the members is in trouble, financially because things have happened to them, we have welfare help that we have given in the past that was up to £100, in terms of helping people pay their bills when they were in trouble. Will it be something that is more? Of course, we have to investigate it, that is genuine, something that will add up to that welfare, universal welfare, if somebody is seriously in trouble. Because, when we gave £100 at the time, certainly from our finances, I could have taken more, because we could have given, there was enough to give even 300, that would have been, the right thing for the person. But I was not allowed. So in reality, what is it that is allowed? Sorry, right. So many.
No, there's a lot in there, really. I mean, I don't know who's going to take this on. I mean, it's certainly, as far as welfare is concerned, that is still going to be there. It won't change, Christina. That support fund will still be in existence. The organising fund for branches is not meant to have individual monies given over to support members. It's for helping branches to organise, which is slightly different. Anybody else want to come in on those points?
So obviously, I'm not going to comment on the regional setup and your support, but in terms of if your branch identified a need for a caseworker, do we need a dedicated caseworker who can pick up casework because the branch officers can't? Then you would be able to bid for that. So that wouldn't be an issue. Clearly, if it was ad hoc, I think, and Josie's already talked about, the workload of the existing staff, it's not seen to provide ad hoc support, but obviously there would be a discussion within your region about what kind of support you need, and maybe a caseworker could be with another branch that you didn't need one full time, or you needed one, just a couple of hours a week that you could deploy as and when you saw fit within the hours that they had, and you could share that with the employer around the times that you'd be able to support people. So In terms of the application process, we haven't got an application process yet. The motion needs to be passed for that to happen, and that would take place at the implementation group, which will be lay-led. And currently there is no fixed amount. You know, it doesn't say you can only have £100 or £1,000 or £20,000. It will be determined on the project that you've got. And clearly, you know, the funding that we already have around campaigning, that still is there. So, you know, if you wanted to support a Pride event, a Mila event, then that funding is still currently there and will be there for people to tap into. So I hope that answers your question, Christina. Good, thumbs up, that's good.
Thank you, thanks Christina. Michael Vaughan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A few questions that are linked together, if you don't mind. How is the lay regional committee chosen? Someone's ringing me, sorry. How is the lay regional committee chosen? How long will they be in post for? When the decision is discussed and taken, will the branch or branches be able to attend to give their point of view directly? What would be the time limit for a project, or is it open-ended? What's the appeal process if turned down? And will cross-branch projects have statutory have preference? I don't know where statutory came from. Have preference over single branch approaches?
Okay. I have to say I quite like the fact that they're very short questions, even though there's quite a few of them, because it does help us, I think, on our side. Anybody want to take those on? I mean, some of them will be decided after it's passed at conference, I'll be honest.
I can if you want, Chris.
Okay.
I'm Staffordshire branch as well, I didn't say. Mike Vaughan from Staffordshire.
All right, Michael, thanks.
So thanks very much for the question or questions, Michael. Really helpful to hear the number of questions you've got. And I suppose the honest answer to some of it is that we still need to work through the implementation and the phasing of how we organise around that. And as Nikki said, we've got a plan to have a lay-led implementation group that will work through the paperwork to look at how branches and regions can access that fund itself. So the regional lay committee we currently have, we've got every region has a lay committee structure at the minute, and those committee members are elected. So the expectation is that the members on this committee, the regional lay committee that will lead on the implementation and manage and oversee and governance the project, will be elected members on that committee. So currently regional lay committees are elected annually. So the expectation again is that we will follow the same guidance and the same process as we currently follow at the minute. Appeals process, that will be in the paperwork, and all of that will become clear once the motion goes through conference and the motion is agreed. We will then come back and ask the implementation group to build into that a robust, a transparent process that branches can access, that regions can follow, and there should be an appeals process built into this. This is all set in the context of what the region, so the flexibility and the flexibility within each region is to determine what their priorities are. So once the region has prioritised its areas of work that they want to advance by utilising the fund, that should be in all of that context. As I said earlier, branches will also be asked and have been asked for a number of years and have participated very well in the organising framework. So each branch will have its own priorities within the organising framework. Will branches, cross branches, have priority over single branch projects? Absolutely not. This is open to all. There will be a transparent process. It will be fair and equitable to all. So every single branch, every region, every service group, every occupational group, every self-organised group has the ability to utilise this fund. And we need to make sure when the process is delivered that that fund is transparent, open, and it's not done in a grace and favour. Everyone has equal access to it, all set in the context of the priorities set within the branch and within the region. Hopefully that covers, if not all, most of your questions, Michael. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you, Lillian. I've got Sue Roylance. Can Christina, can you take a hand down, please? Sue Roylance.
Hi, Sue Roylance from the University's Central Lancashire branch. Our branch is a small branch. We have less than 500 full members. And we adopted CaseWeb very early on, despite it being expensive for us as a branch, because we felt it was a really valuable tool and was going to help us manage a very heavy caseload within the branch. So even though we have a small number of members compared to some branches, we do have a heavy caseload. My understanding from what I've been told so far and what I've read is that this discounted offer for CaseWeb will be for people who take it up in the future, and that leaves branches like ours in a position where we will be penalised for being early adopters. Can you tell me if that message that has been going out saying that it'll be for new branches that voluntarily take it on in the future is correct? And if it is correct, why are you going to penalise us as an early adopter?
I can deal with that one, Chris. So I just really want to pick that one up because I want to reassure you, to be perfectly frank, if your branch has less than 2,000 members, then the subsidy will apply to your branch. It doesn't matter if you already have CaseWeb or if you choose to take it up in the future. Every branch with less than 2,000 members will benefit from that subsidy. So I hope that reassures you.
Thank you, Josie. Colin Sawyers.
Hi there, Colin Sawyers here from Ashfield Local Government Branch in Nottinghamshire. I've actually got a follow-on question on CaseWeb. We're also a very small branch, just 180 members, and similar from us really, sorry, just getting the question together. CaseWeb, why isn't it being funded by the union centrally for everybody to have access to, rather than leaving individual branches to opt in on various different factors when we could all make use of it and utilise it right throughout the union?
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to take these ones up because obviously these questions are the session today. I'm just going to start by saying thanks for your question, Colin, but the session today is wholly designed to really kind of address the Branch Support and Organising Fund, and I'm happy to deal with the question, but I would hope if there's subsequent questions from other participants and they have questions around issues such as CaseWeb, we do have another session running in June, which will be looking at the whole of the branch resources review package, and we'll be able to give those sorts of areas far more focus in that one. So, but we're trying to focus on the Branch Support and Organising Fund today. But really, I'm gonna pick up the linkage, which actually is directly related to your question. When we were undertaking the review, we looked really across the organisation about where we could identify additional resources, savings that we could channel into additional resources that we can provide to branches. And to be absolutely frank, we have the three main areas where we've channeled our additional resources into branches, and this reflected what came back in the survey that we did of branches in terms of the priority we've given them. But the three areas where we really put our resources are into this new Branch Support and Organising Fund, a little bit more money into the branch funding formula for branches, and a little bit of money into CaseWeb. And we had quite long discussions about how much resource should be going into those three areas that we had identified. But when we did the survey, the main thing branches wanted was more time. And this is really going to provide, we think, quite a lot of branches with considerable more time or capacity, which enables activists to have more time. The second thing was more regional support, and absolutely this fund is wholly about more regional support going into branches. So this really ticked those biggest asks that we had from branches. The third was about more funding for branches. So that really is what the branch funding formula is about, and that's where we channeled our next greatest amount of money. Fourth came out the survey, branches saying they wanted better systems and software. And CaseWeb really kind of addresses that that particular area. But we felt that given what branches were telling us they needed, we put the greatest amount of resources we could into things like the branch support and organising fund, because we thought that reflected what it was that branches were telling us we needed. We didn't think CaseWeb was unimportant. Indeed, I think we all wanted to make it free for branches, but at the moment, with what we had available to us, we wanted to give the greatest priority to funds such as the branch support and organising fund, which is why we've applied a subsidy, but we haven't made it free for all branches yet, I would say, because I think that continues to be an aspiration, and it may end up being something that happens, but we're not proposing it for 2022. Thanks.
Thank you, Josie. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on. If your question doesn't get asked, then addressed, then I'm sorry, but we're going to run out of time if I try and answer all of them. I've got one from Becky Everett. Is Becky here? I think she is. Do you want to ask your question, Becky?
I don't know if I can remember it, Chris.
Oh, do you want me to remind you?
Was it to do with what branches could access and what the region agreed to? Was it regarding that?
Clarity on what is and isn't available to branches without having to jump through hoops with the region and the region making the decisions.
That's exactly what I said. Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the clarity, because we had, when we'd had discussions with other people around it, there's obviously been some talk that we couldn't request some help for admin help, but then from what was said a little while ago, and I did have to jump off because we've had a member pop into the office, is that some people were talking about being able to access joint admin with somebody else. So it's all just a bit confusing as to what we can access, what we can't access, or use funding for.
I hope that most of it's been answered in the presentation that we've had so far. I mean, we've said that there's going to be an implementation group set up when this has gone through National Special Delegate Conference, and that implementation group will set some parameters, but it's going to be for us in the region to decide how we actually administer that fund, and it's going to be lay members that will decide that that the region will actually identify as being part of the group that is going to do that particular work. I'm hoping maybe that you will be part of that group, Becky.
Let's hope so. I'd like to be.
So it's going to be for us to make those decisions, I think, really, but based on a broad set of parameters that will be set up by the implementation group, I think. I mean, if I recognise myself here, I think one thing we've got to be clear on is that we're consistent throughout the union, and that all regions are applying the same consistent approach to it, because it's been one of the problems with the regional pool, I think, really, is that no one was quite clear on what it was supposed to be there for, I think, really, and it was dealt with differently in each of the regions. So the one thing I would stress is we need to be consistent throughout the union on how it's actually applied. But
no, I'd agree.
It can be for lay members to decide all those things, Becky.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris.
That's all right. Anybody else want to add to that? Was that all right? No? Okay. The next, the question I've got really, I've got one about local bids. The key feature of the fund is to be flexible about local bids. Please elaborate. And I think you have elaborated, actually, Nikki. I don't know whether you want to add any more to that, but you know, I think, as I said, it's going to be something that that we've got flexibility about once that implementation group has decided the parameters of the fund, I think, really.
Absolutely. Can I come in very quickly on that, Chris?
Yes. Sure.
I'd hope that people would take away from today that, you know, the principle behind this is a transparent and open fund that people will access, and that there will be a universal process to apply, and then a universal appeal process, picking up your point around how the regional pool worked. But then it will be up to the regions, as Lillian's talked about, around priorities, your branch priorities, So some of the ideas will be a potential shop front, you know, people have talked about that across branches, joint bids from branches, bids from self-organised groups, which I think is really good in terms of our organising agenda. So Josie's used the word already, but I do really believe that this fund would be transformational and really allow the union to move into an area that allows us to organise to scale. So thanks, Chris, for indulging me there.
Okay, thank you. And my last question there was, will this proposal change the geographical spread of membership that needs to be calculated? I think that's one for you, Josie, I think.
I think you're probably right, Chris. And I suppose the first thing, again, is to say we are going to have a session in early June looking specifically about at the branch funding formula. So for whoever submitted that one, that's your opportunity to come along and discuss that in a little bit more detail. But really, when we looked at the branch funding formula, we did look at a number of factors. And for those of you like me who are a little bit geeky, you probably already know the 5 factors that apply in the branch funding formula. For those of you who don't, geographical spread is one of those things. Now, we had quite a lot of discussions around geographical spread, but actually on balance, we decided it probably wasn't the biggest issue for branches. Things such as multiple employer factor, fragmentation, the number of different employers that branches are organising across, and Nikki touched on that when she was doing the presentation. That was seen as a greater challenge for branches. So geographical spread remains part of the branch funding formula, but it remains unchanged in the proposals that we've got going to the Special Delegate Conference, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the questions. I can't see anybody putting their hand up for any additional questions to supplement those. No, it's your last chance. No, I can't see any. So that just leaves it for me to say thank you very much to the panel. Thank you for you for turning up and contributing. I think it's all been very helpful for us. I hope it's been helpful for you as well, and given you some clearer ideas about the proposals for the organising fund. As Josie said a couple of times, there will be another session on funding issues, finance, that we hope you'll be coming to as well. And it just remains for me to say, can I remind you, it's up on the screen there, can I remind you please to take part in the poll if you've not already done so. And that's just to give us an idea about how you think the actual session has gone and whether it was helpful for you at all. So thank you very much indeed, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, thanks to the signers, I should have said that. Thank you to the signers as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye-bye.